Wrestle Plug 444 Life.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get plugged in.
The refreshing, empowering moment that we have all wanted from WWE.
It's like ordering a medium pizza and then turning up with an extra large and a bottle of Coke.
You absolute mouldy cheese fucking baby bell dairy lead dunk of shit.
What happens is these fucking people live in this fantasy land.
Everyone got their shit in, everyone got each other over, everyone looked good, and made the industry look great.
People need to fucking back the fuck off Ronda Rousey.
New to pump wrestling talent.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the Wrestle Plug podcast. I am, of course, your host, Aaron Nix, the most unpopular podcasting host in all of Britain, although somebody across the pond is stealing all my thunder. Fuck's sake. These people, honestly. It's the State of Wrestling address. Every single week, we sit down and talk about all the hot topics, the most controversial points, and also the most interesting and heartwarming points of wrestling. So, obviously, I'm not going to do this by myself. I have my usual support from the North, the Great North, the White North, the Northest of Norths. Probably the most northern area possible, where there is still a decent level of humanity and conviction and compassion. Canada's favourite cleaner when Kenny can't be asked to work properly, Carl Wilkinson.
Oh, always such high praise. I don't deserve it, but I'm going to take it and run with it.
You deserve it. Fucking hate that chant. Absolutely hate it.
There are really annoying chants, and that just happens to be like top 3. CM Punk ones are also really fucking annoying, but not as bad as What Chants. What Chants are the absolute worst.
Yeah, so for me, it's the "You've Still Got It" chant, because he wouldn't get in the ring if he couldn't wrestle anymore. So it annoys me when people are like, "You've still got it." Of course they've still got it, dickhead, because they're on the massive fucking marquee platform that is professional wrestling in WWE or AEW or whatever it is. What chants, like you say, just disruptive, just fucking annoying. It's like, shut the fuck up. Like, it was cool for a while, don't get me wrong, but it's, you know, the what chants are the equivalent of that joke that your mate's got and he has to say 50 times over because he got a pop for it once. So he thinks, oh, that was funny. I'm going to go around and say that all the time now for the rest of my life. You've always got that one friend who wants to tell you a fucking story over and over. It's like, dude, I've heard this story 1,000 times. Shut the fuck up. Ain't that. CM Punk chants, like you say, although to be fair, they've pretty much died out. I mean, all chanting's died out at the moment, hasn't it? Let's be fair. Yeah, it's... What else is really fucking annoying in terms of crowd chants? Oh, this is awesome.
Oh,
like,
Christ,
we
yeah.
just do this is awesome now for everything. Like, it used to be really cool. Like, this is awesome. Oh, also, Fight Forever. No. I want to see other matches. Go away. Fight Forever chants are fucking stupid. You know, they're just for... It's really fucking shit as well, because a lot of these chants are just done by people who fucking want to jump on bandwagons, man, like sheep. It annoys the crap out of me, some of these chants, you know. Also, people who chant, let's go Cena, Cena sucks. Like, support the other guy. That makes you sound fucking stupid. You know, remember when he was facing... Like, AJ Styles is one of the few... This is how good AJ Styles is. People actually chanted for his name. Let's go Cena, let's go AJ. People are, I hate John Cena. Okay, are we going to get the other guy over a bit more then? No, I'm just going to chant that I hate him. Okay, well, you're just as big a part of the problem, you fucking morons. Fucking idiots. There's a lot of idiots running around wrestling today, isn't there, Mr. Wilkinson?
Yeah, that's because social media allows people the platform to say ridiculous nonsense.
Yeah, there should be an added icon or an added feature to all social media where if you say something ridiculously inflammatory which has absolutely no credibility, a giant fist comes thundering out of the screen and punches you right in the face. So we had an example of this, didn't we? I mean, I'm not going to give Flatbag too much promotion, so I probably won't bother mentioning his name, but unfortunately one of the biggest talking points this week was the comments directed towards Alexa Bliss by a certain podcaster. The certain podcaster in question insinuated that if Alexa Bliss put as much effort in bed as she does into her wrestling, that she would be incredibly shit in bed. You know, that was the gist of it. Alexa Bliss was bold enough to tackle this on her social media platform. This then led to an absolute barrage of abuse and everything else under the sun. Now, the initial comment was not only stupid, but frankly fucking moronic, particularly when you consider all the unfortunate things that have just gone down, the unfortunate and tragic passing of Hana Kimura, you know, and in the wake of that, people demanding that we be more kind and end cyberbullying. But this is a very murky territory because now people are using that as an excuse to attack anybody who doesn't have the same opinion as them, going, oh, you're just not being kind. It's like, no, people are still entitled to an opinion. People are still entitled to say things. People are still entitled to freedom of speech. And Hana Kimura's unfortunate passing should not be used as an excuse to try and douse the flames of anything that you don't like just because it doesn't correlate with your beliefs. Obviously, there are exceptions, this fuck nugget being one of them. What's your thoughts on the whole debacle? It should be pointed out that the individual in question did actually apologise to Alexa Bliss, and Alexa Bliss did accept that apology. So, you know, that is kind of a line drawn underneath it. But we're getting a lot of problems with toxic social media, whether it be toxic masculinity, inappropriate behaviour towards women's wrestlers, people like Jim Cornette trying to trigger everybody under the sun, which I find quite amusing at this point. I just, you know, it's up to you really how you take it, but how do you see the overall landscape of social media and the problem with bullying culture? Not only that, but also cancel culture as well.
I mean, we all know who said it. We're not going to say the name because the dumb motherfucker doesn't...
Payne. I'm sorry.
The motherfucker doesn't need... Yeah, fucking... Well, the cat's out of the bag now. Everyone, kill Nick Payne. No, don't do that. He has a son that would probably miss him. I don't know anything about that relationship, and I'm not going to get into it because that'll just get dark. Anywho, that got awkward. But I see that's kind of an example of bullying, which is not... I was bullied as a kid. I can imagine most people that listen to this were in one way or another. Didn't have to be physical. But it can leave an everlasting effect on you that will just... It could potentially ruin any sort of like relationships or something you could have in your adult life. It is such... It can be so traumatic that it just ruins you. Like it took me a long time to be like comfortable with who I am, like the things that I like, you know, my body. I don't claim to be someone that's fit. I got a little bit of a keg instead of a six pack. Would I like to change it? Sure. Do I feel bad when people make fun of it? No, because I just don't give a shit what people think about me anymore. And that took a very long time to cultivate that wall. And just because people are on an international platform performing for our entertainment, people forget that they're people too. There are human beings behind those characters. You know, Alexa Bliss is the character. I believe Lexi Kaufman is her name. I'm sure she, just from, you know, what social media can kind of show you behind the scenes, she seems like an absolute darling. She seems like one of the nicest people you could ever meet. And her problems with, you know, eating disorders and all that are very well documented. I'm sure she's suffered enough. And this bag of shit just attacks her for her craft, which I could guarantee he could not take a single bump. I think one chop and he'd be down on his fucking hands and knees crying, gasping for breath. Bullying is something that will always be an unfortunate inevitability in life. I don't think it will ever actually go away. It can't go away because it seems the human race is just always built around tearing others down as opposed to building them up. And that will probably be our ultimate downfall if you really think about it. I want to have some sort of existential crisis here, but it's just we don't have a need for it, and yet there's always almost like a demand for it.
What's your thoughts on cancel culture?
Oh, like people going, you know, suspend or cancel.
Witch hunts, you know,
blah,
that
blah,
kind
blah.
of thing.
Yeah.
What happened to Tessa Blanchard? It happens to numerous people. You know what cancel culture is.
Yeah. I mean, you can't just because someone says something doesn't mean it's true. And for the Tessa accusation specifically, I mean, people said, yeah, I've got screenshots, I've got all this kind of crap. You can't just say that and then not show it. Just going after someone because someone else said one thing about said person, and then, you know, thousands of people just jump on it. Yeah, fuck this person, blah, blah. Just, it's like the blind leading the blind. And eventually they're all just going to walk off a cliff. Because they have this just stupid mentality of just believing everything they see. Everyone deserves a second chance. You know, there are exceptions, I'm sure, you know. You know, maybe a serial killer doesn't necessarily deserve a second chance. Maybe kind of just give them the chair and be done with it. Then again, capital punishment is something that Canada doesn't have, so I guess I don't have a great insight on that. Yeah, really. Maple syrup injection. Death from diabetes. It's funny to make those jokes because diabetes.
It is. I mean, it's probably well known at this point that you have diabetes. This seems like such a depressing podcast so far. It's like, death from diabetes. Yeah, if you don't mind me interjecting,
No, by all means, buddy.
I don't have a problem with Alexa Bliss tackling anything at all whatsoever. Like, she has every right to question and tackle idiotic comments like that. And it's, for me, that comment spoke more about the lack of respect for women in the workplace and the severe lack of understanding of what it takes to be a woman in a professional working environment, and particularly a highly successful woman in an environment. I have never claimed to truly understand what it must be like to be a woman in such a difficult era, and, you know, equality still isn't nearly where it should be, and the fact that people want to act like it is quite comical. It just isn't, and comments like this pretty much sum that up. You know, don't get me wrong, men get a lot of judgment and criticism, particularly in the wrestling world, but very rarely is it equated to their sexuality. And I think that's very disappointing that we needed to make a comment that would equate to how good she was at her job based on her sexuality or what she would do in her sexual life. That is just, frankly, disgusting and out of bounds, and, you know, breaches a personal boundary which she had every right to tackle. But I made a point, and I noticed we lost a few followers on Twitter for it, probably because I actually practice what I fucking preach. Now, I said that just because somebody makes a shitty comment does not entitle you to then go completely against the grain and use your platform to use as much vitriol and aggression and witch hunting methods to completely lambast and abuse this individual. I've seen comments that have been sent to him saying that they're going to find his family and, you know, murder them and things like that. It's just, that's just fucking ridiculous. This just shows how pathetically immature and out of date the wrestling fan base is in so many ways. And I know it's not the majority, and I know it's not everybody, but there's a big enough amount of you out there that it's a big problem. People do not fucking respect each other enough, and social media gives them an opportunity to show even more disrespect. Social media gives you an opportunity to hide in a scenario where, let's be honest, the vast majority, 99.9% of people who make such disgusting comments, trolls, idiots, you know, inflammatory morons, the majority of these people would get the shit kicked out of them if they said this on a public platform. If they actually had the nerve to say this to somebody's face, which of course they wouldn't, they would literally get battered half to death. And that's why social media is so pathetic, because what it does is it affords a platform for people to be able to make assumptions, tones. I've been guilty of that. Or shall I say, I've been a victim of that many times. I like to think that I have never attacked somebody without merit, or, you know, I've always kind of tried to base whatever I say to people on social media on facts and, you know, just generally have a more measured approach to these things, as opposed to just being like, yeah, fuck you, and just, you know, instantly going for the abuse and that, because that's just not my thing. I, like you, see human beings. And I understand that whoever I'm speaking to is still a human being. I would never resort to, you know, such disgusting comments like this guy said. But at the same time, I'm sick and tired of people who have a choice in what they consume and what they watch and what they listen to. Also, just choosing to listen to things like, you know, right? You know beforehand that this guy's going to say something stupid. You know that. You know what he's about. You know, it's the same as Jim Cornette, right? Now, I don't mind listening to a lot of what Jim Cornette says, particularly when it comes to old school wrestling, because the truth hurts, ladies and gentlemen, but Jim Cornette knows an astonishing amount about wrestling. Now, does he say some fucking asinine things? Absolutely. That's part of his culture. That's part of his, you know, his old ways. He's not going to change, and the one thing I will say for him is at least he fucking is consistent in his behaviour. So even if you don't like it, you have to accept that, hey, at least that is who he is, and he's not trying to pretend to be somebody else. And at least when people call him out on his ridiculous comments, he doesn't then just completely U-turn and go, oh, no, I didn't say that. You've totally got the wrong end of the stick. You know? He is what he is. But also, people know what they're going to get. They know what they're going to get when they hear Jim Cornette's voice. They know what they're going to get when they listen to a fuck nugget like this guy and his podcast. You know, just like you know what you're going to get, surprise, when you listen to the Wrestle Plug. You know what we're going to talk about. You know what me and Carl are like. You know what I'm like. So if you know what you're going to get and you've made a conscientious choice to listen to that, why are you now fucking kicking off about what you hear? You know, if you deliberately step in shit, don't complain that your trainers stink. And that's kind of the problem here. I get why people are upset and angry, but also you have a choice. And I think genuinely, if we all exercised our choice to not listen to that horse shit and to those dumb voices, chances are those voices become quieter and quieter over time. Now, obviously, I'm not one of these people who's just like, you know, when I was a kid, my mum, because I'm the same as you, mate, I used to get bullied to shit at school, horrendously. Only Arab kid in school, great time, great fucking fun that was. Now, and also, you know, with my sexuality, I was fucking hammered, no end. So for me, you know, I understand that, you know, you can't just ignore everything and you can't just walk away. My mum used to say to me all the time, if someone hits you in the face, you just walk away. No. If I ever was blessed with being a father of any kind, or even like with my little sisters and things, I always say to them, if someone hits you, you fucking knock them out. You know, I believe in that. I believe that you should, you know, you should fight fire with fire to a certain extent. But when it comes to something so innocuous like a comment, come on. We can't just fucking launch a nuclear missile every time somebody says something that we don't like, especially when we've had a choice. It's not like this guy grabbed us all by the neck and said, you will listen to my opinions. You have a choice. And a lot of people like listening to this fuck nugget. A lot of people don't. Same with Jim Cornette. I like listening to Jim Cornette. Does that make me a bad person because I listen to Jim Cornette's podcast? Of course it fucking doesn't. I actually listen to it because I enjoy listening to the other side of things. I actually really enjoy engaging with people who have a completely different opinion, excuse me, than what I do. I enjoy that because what that does is that means that I have an opportunity to not condition my brain to just what I want to hear, because I cannot stand that. Me personally as an individual, I am not a fan of just hearing what I want to hear. And when I am, I try and knock myself out of that, because we're all guilty of it. We all want to feel like what we say and how we feel is, you know, the right way to feel. And we all want to, you know, we all need that kind of, we need that, you know, that the relatability. We need to have that confirmation from people around us that we're correct in what we're doing, even if it's not necessarily morally, you know, the right thing to do. But like I say, everything comes down to a choice. And when people don't want to exercise choice and choose to be outraged just for the sake of being outraged, this is going to hurt people. But I do think we live in a far too sensitive environment. We're all way, way, way too sensitive to what one idiot's thoughts are. For instance, look at Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump's a fuck nugget, and obviously he's a little bit different because he's in such a unique environment. He's the leader of the free world, so to speak. But, find a tweet that's inflammatory or stupid. We've got this horrible incident involving George Floyd at the moment, which just sums up, the problem with modern day culture. And that's a podcast I could do for 2 hours straight alone. But find a tweet that's clearly wrong or inflammatory, something that insults a woman's credibility or something that just insults or is racist or whatever. It's just a tweet. But people treat it like it's gospel, like it somehow has, like it carries weight. Like it somehow has credibility, and it doesn't. All these things that are said on social media, all these things that are said on podcasts, like I'm not stupid. I know that our podcast is just our podcast, and I know that sometimes loads of people listen, sometimes a lot of people don't. That's fine. The great thing about our podcast is you have a choice, and I'm incredibly grateful and thankful to anyone who bothers to listen. I really am. And I'm incredibly grateful that people want to come on the podcast, like Carl, who's a very dear friend of mine, to share that experience. But I'm also not stupid. I'm also aware that a lot of people out there probably don't agree with what I have to say. And the great thing is if they don't have to listen to me. It's not like I force everybody to listen to this. You have a choice what you listen to, what you read. You genuinely have choices. And I think as a society, I think it's quite sad. I think we've forgotten that we have a choice. We have the ability, if we want, to be almost better, if you know what I mean. We have that ability to improve ourselves, but we don't want to. We find it easier to be outraged than we do to make a choice to listen to what we, enjoy more. All that energy that people have put into attacking this fuck nugget, we could have used that for something so much better. We could have sat down and read a book. We could have spent that time listening to a podcast we actually enjoy. It's fine to agree with Alexa Bliss, and you should too, because what he said was disgraceful. But at the same time, cancel culture as well. No, we can't just cancel everything just because it makes you upset or it offends you. If you continue to do that, you will also continue. These are the same people, right? The cancel culture. These are the same people who are saying, "Oh, I fucking hate the fact that Donald Trump's, a part of this government. Oh, I hate the fact that Donald Trump's my president. Or I hate Boris Johnson. Or I hate, that's fine. But if you continue to force this cancel culture shit down everyone's throats and say, "Oh, we need to cancel things," cancel culture is a fucking joke, okay? And if I see you engaging in it, I'll fucking call you out on it. You know why? Because even if somebody's difference of opinion is horseshit, that does not mean you are entitled to completely switch them off and shut them down and cancel them as an individual. You are not. Nobody is entitled to smother or stifle somebody just because they have terrible opinions. What you are entitled to do is completely ignore them. What you are entitled to, don't get me wrong, you're entitled to challenge them as well. And that's fine too. But when you go out of your way to say, I want that person eliminated, I want that person cancelled. So if you got into a heated debate with somebody who didn't agree with you in a bar or something, if you're having a conversation, would you pull out a gun and terminate that person for having a difference of opinion? Of course you wouldn't. That's the equivalent of a online cancel culture. And not only that, it just promotes a pathetic witch hunt. And a lot of times we promote these witch hunts based on very loose facts, things that haven't really been confirmed or clarified. The Tessa Blanchard situation was one. I don't want to dig that back up. I've met Tessa Blanchard. I thought she was lovely. I am a huge fan of hers as a wrestler and a worker, and I love her professional style. Has she had attitude problems in the past? I have no doubt about that. Trust me, every fucking wrestler has some sort of attitude or ego. That's just the way the business is, and you've got to accept that if you want to be a wrestling fan, I'm afraid, especially if you want to peel back the curtain. But, the way that people went after her, and yet nobody provided any evidence other than hearsay, was frankly disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. And I personally think that she may have been involved in some less than nefarious incidences, but also at the same time, I'm not going to fucking completely destroy her career just based on hearsay. We need to work with evidence as well and things like that. Obviously, what Dickhead said is out there. There's no questioning that. And I know people are going to be saying, whoa, that's just fucking true. He said it. Yeah, he did say it. But my final point is, you have a choice as to whether you are, one, offended or not, and two, whether you listen or not. Nick Payne's greatest contribution to society is the phrase, offence is taken, not given. And it's so true. And as far as cancel culture goes, fuck off. I'm not going to engage in that. Just because I don't like something doesn't mean I have to cancel it. Absolutely not. Can we use cancel culture for things that matter? For instance, we should be cancelling the sheer number of people who still think it's acceptable in society to ridicule and alienate and murder black people. That should be cancel culture, not, oh, somebody said something and it offended my feelings on Twitter. We all get offended. I get offended too. But it's my choice to be offended, not yours. And just being outraged for the sake of being outraged is not only counterproductive, but it's fucking exhausting, man. I get knackered from it. I really do. And it's really sad that already the majority have forgotten about Hana and what happened to her. And the fact that her beautiful soul is no longer with us. You know, we've all forgotten about that because we're too busy screaming about being outraged. It's the next thing, isn't it? We were upset, we were hurt, and some of us continue to be upset and hurt that we've lost her, but the majority, I've noticed, have moved on to the next thing that pisses them off and outrages them. And in a week's time, we'll have forgotten who this fucking nugget is and would have found somebody else to bury on social media because we're all fickle, we're all a little bit fucking dumb in the way we treat social media, and frankly, we're all just a little bit fucking loose in our morals. Give it a week, mate, and nobody will even remember who this twat is. You know, somebody will say, oh, remember what that dickhead said about Alexa Bliss? Pfft, nobody cares about that. That's old news. Did you hear what so-and-so said about some guy on 205 Live? It just moves on and on. It's a rotating amount of horse shit. And I think people need to realise that the social media is just a very small echo chamber, and it is not a device, and it is not a platform that correlates with the real world and what people think. Because what you do on social media is you create a bubble of the opinions that suit you based on who you follow. And the more you do that, the less you then associate with what the real world is and how the real world feels and thinks and works. And this is the problem with people. I truly believe that people are taking far too much stock in social media and they are forgetting what it is like to be part of humanity. They are forgetting what it's like to be a human being. And when it's all said and done, and when the pandemic is finally lifted and people can go back to their normal lives, I think some people are going to find it really fucking hard to adjust simply because they have used this as an opportunity to bury themselves even deeper in a world that frankly isn't all that real.
Yeah, people are just... So we've talked about this before, both on and off the podcast. People are just so hell-bent on breaking others down instead of trying to help build others back up. But I think we spent enough time on this guy because we had to talk about it because it was absolutely something that needed to be talked about. But even then, I still feel like we're giving him a little too much fame. So let's move on to something a little more exciting that may or may not have happened on Dynamite this past Wednesday.
Dynamite! Yeah, I know what you're talking about. FTR is in the house, baby. The debut of, well, I believe they are actually called FTR, which is Fear the Revolution, I want to say, unless I've got that wrong. I know a lot of people said Fear the Revolt or Fear the Revival or whatever it might be, or Fuck the Revival, whatever it may be. FTR, yes indeed, the formerly known tag team of the Revival is now a part of All Elite Wrestling, and they made their presence felt. What is this obsession every week now with somebody driving in from the same angle? You think they put some cones up or something around there? Fucking ridiculous. But nonetheless, they are in the house. They are now a part of All Elite Wrestling. And this bolsters an already obscenely swollen tag team division. It is just unfair. And the sooner we get the belts on an actual tag team so that we can have all of these tag teams going after each other, it's going to be so fucking good. AEW really is the place to be right now. I know that people are going to be like, oh, you're just an AEW fanboy. Don't care. I love both companies. I do. I love all wrestling. But AEW right now is just, it speaks to me. And it's my preference. And being subjective as it is, it's what I choose to watch. And I'm so excited about that. You know, I thought that Brian Cage coming in was going to be amazing enough. When that truck, that sort of really cool, whatever it is they call it, I don't know. We don't really have those vehicles that much over here. But when they tipped up in that sweet looking fucking ride and just burst out, initially, I was like, who are these two? Because they look slightly different. And then all of a sudden, I caught a glimpse of it. I thought, that looks like that. Oh my God, it's him. I was like, oh, fucking amazing. Popped again. Great. I forgot what it was like to just freak out of a moment. Can you imagine how huge this would have been if there had been a full audience? A massive 16,000 seater arena, everybody fucking losing their minds, right? Oh, it would have been magical. Fuck you, Corona. You're ruining all our wonderful moments. You must have plenty to say about this, mate. I know you watched it live. Now, for anyone who wants a full review of the show, we covered it on YouTube. Well, I covered it on YouTube. It's available on our YouTube channel for free, of course. We do a lot of exclusive reviews on there, so head over to Wrestle Plug on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and all that nonsense and check it out. It was a good review. And also, we're really bolstering our animations and how our videos look. So please give us some feedback. Let us know what you think of that. Carl Wilkinson, the Revival is in the house. How are we feeling about this?
It was one of the two places I suggest they go in my article. If you guys haven't read that yet, do me a huge favor.
Go and read it.
That would be brilliant. But I'm thinking, do you remember the pop that Santana and Ortiz got when they just showed up?
Creamy.
I think it would have been better than that. As much as I love Proud and Powerful, I think that FTR showing up would have blown the roof off. That's why I think, because what happens, they came in and they actually saved the Young Bucks from a beatdown from Butcher and the Blade. And then there's a bit of a standoff, but we didn't get any physical confrontation, which I think I would really like them to hold off on that match that we all want until things are at least back to a relative normality. Because I think doing FTR against the Young Bucks in an empty arena, air quotes, is a massive disservice to both teams because of how much they've built it themselves over social media for the past, 3 years? I think it would, massive disservice, and it will just, I can't wait to see them actually wrestle again. They hit a dirty shatter, I don't know if they can still call it the shatter machine, but they hit a dirty one on, I think it was the Butcher.
The Butcher. Yeah, he took a lot of abuse. They went straight for the big boy.
Yeah, it's going to be so good. These guys are one of the best tag teams in the world. That's something JR was actually saying a lot on comms. One of the few things he said recently that I agree with. Poor guy. But this match is eventually going to be everything we want and probably more. And I don't mind waiting for it. Give me the slow burn. Give me something to salivate over, because FTR and the Young Bucks, we all loved the Young Bucks against Hangman and Kenny. I think this will be 10 times better than that. And you can quote me on this.
I think it is absolutely crucial that they do not spunk their debut quickly. I think it's, like you say, slow burn is so crucial here. Let everything breathe. Let everything build. I want to see them sticking their noses in all over the place when it comes to the tag team division, putting everybody on notice, and people sort of saying, when are you fuckers going to, when are you going to fight? When are you going to get involved? Build their debut. Now, I don't have a problem, obviously, with their debut happening before, because you just don't know when crowds are going to be allowed back in, hopefully sooner rather than later. But until that point, they're going to have to wrestle, obviously. I would not allow them to actually have a full match, a full debut match, until Fyter Fest. And I think they should be built to take on a highly credible, but also nothing too high level, high marquee. For instance, I don't want to see him wrestle the Young Bucks at Fyre Fest. You know, people are like, oh my God, give me that versus that. Great. And then what happens? Once it's gone, it's gone. Once it's done, it's done. So you need to honestly, you know, be patient with it, because otherwise, I don't know. I want to really be rabid for it. I want it to get to a point where, you know, I just have to have it. Like, there's no other choice. You must have it. It must be built. You know, can you imagine if Austin and The Rock, as soon as they got any kind of traction, were immediately thrown into the main event of every pay-per-view? Just wouldn't have worked. You know, it needed to be special. It needed to mean something. And for me, I would like to see them take on someone like an SCU or, you know, Best Friends, somebody like that, somebody who's very capable, someone who are fantastic workers. I'd like to see them face them first at Fyre Fest, give them a real platform, plenty of time to really display what they're all about, show people what they are, which is, you know, legitimately one of the best tag teams of the modern era. Then, once you've done that, then you can start slowly building things. You know, then we can start working towards different rivalries. I think their rivalry with the Young Bucks is so obvious, but it's also so needed. And it is everything that a lot of wrestling fans want. And what the Revival versus, or FTR, should I say, versus the Young Bucks, what that kind of represents is the old versus the new in a lot of ways. You know, like, I mean, the fact that FTR are Jim Cornette's favourite tag team speaks volumes. You know, anything to get against the Young Bucks, I feel, at this point. But at the same time, I think it's very important that, like you say, we let things breathe, and also let them go through the tag team division in the right way. Let them have big rivalries with all of them, not just, oh, this week, FTR faces Lucha Brothers. Next week, FTR faces Best Friends. The week after that, FTR versus Hangman Page and Kenny Omega for the start. It's like, no. You know, make every single match mean something, because let's be honest, the Revival, aka FTR, against any of these tag teams, most of them are dream matches. FTR versus Lucha Brothers is one of my dream matches. I don't want that to be a throwaway match on Dynamite.
That's going to be so good.
Exactly. That must be a match that is held in the highest regard. It must not be fucking ruined by their slap-happy mentality of, oh, Jesus Christ, we need to make sure that we fucking get everything, you know, smacked on TV immediately. Oh, shit, we've got to beat NXT this week. Let's have the Revival versus the Lucha Brothers in the opener. No. Play to your own strengths. Go to your own timing. The ratings war doesn't fucking matter. Give people a sustainable and amazing television product, which, to be fair, I think for the majority of times they have done quite well. I thought Double or Nothing was fantastic. Turns out not everybody enjoyed it, and that's fine. You know, not everybody has to like everything. But for me, it's just about letting it breathe and letting it build the right way. But I am so excited to see FTR in here. I think it really helps legitimize that tag team division in a lot of ways as well. I mean, it's already a fairly legit tag team division. I think it's been booked pretty terribly, in my personal opinion. I don't like the idea of Page and Omega holding on to the belts, and I also have a very hot take which I'm going to unleash in a moment. But yeah, how can you not be excited about a tag team of this quality now being in AEW? It's phenomenal, and it just makes AEW an even more must-watch proposition for all of us.
Yeah, like this, I've loved the Revival FTR since their NXT days. Even when they had the shitty booking on Raw, like before they left, didn't care. I still loved them because they could make anything work. The concept of them, I need them, like you say, to work their way up through the tag division. Don't just fucking blow your load on all the big dream matches. Like, give me FTR and the Lucha Brothers at All Out or something. Like, I know Fyter Fest is next, and after that, I assume it'll be All Out. Don't put it at, like, the next pay-per-view. Put it at the next one. After that, build up. Let them I'd love to see them face Private Party. I think those two teams would have a banger of a match. Obviously, FTR is obviously probably going to go over. I wouldn't even say probably. They would go over because they are just such a hot commodity that they just need it. And I don't think Private Party would be too damaged in the defeat because, I mean, come on, man, it's FTR. It's going to be an amazing story to watch. It makes me so much more excited for the AEW tag division that once it's stopped being held hostage by two singles guys, I think it will be exactly what the Bucks promised when this company was conceptualized, and they will have the best tag team division in the world.
Yes, hot take time, baby. So obviously people know that I want the belts off of Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. I don't dislike either of those guys. I think they're wonderful guys. I just don't think they should be in the tag team division, full stop. I think it's insulting that a tag team division that had Proud and Powerful, the Young Bucks, and everybody else you could possibly name. You know, the fact that all of those people didn't get the tag titles before these guys is disgraceful, as far as I'm concerned. I think that you should make tag team wrestling, not fucking immediately spunk your load. It's not good enough for me. I think they need to do better from that perspective. Now, with that being said, this week coming on AEW Dynamite, or should I say next week, the next AEW Dynamite will see them defend the tag team championships against Jimmy Havoc and Kip Sabian with Penelope Ford. First of all, no. I like Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc as a tag team. You know, I think that, but at the same time, they just don't feel like a tag team. It's like, hey, two British guys. But I think we need to get the belts off of Hangman Page and Kenny Omega immediately. First of all, Hangman Page for me finally has the right level of momentum. People are all over him. You know, we've had a chance to have a break from him as well because he hasn't been on the product as much due to the pandemic, and he's only just made his return. Obviously, he was at, you know, the Stadium Stampede match, although I don't think he was on Dynamite this week either, which was a bit of a surprise, but it is what it is. You know, you need to get Hangman Page into a meaningful and strong singles rivalry immediately before people lose their interest in him again, because people are quite fickle in the way that they look at wrestling. And, you know, if you're not consistently delivering, people do tend to tune out very quickly. And I think Hangman Page can be a huge star, but you need to capitalize on it quick. I don't think he's the kind of guy who has the longevity or the ability to just continuously and consistently be the number one guy unless he captures lightning at the right time. You know, someone like Sting, for instance, I use him as an example. I could trust Sting to go away for 5 years, come back and still be the top babyface. You know, he could still be a world-class star because he was just that good. He was the kind of guy who transcended everything about wrestling. I don't see that with Hangman Page as much. However, right now, I love him. I think he is super, super red hot, and they need to capitalize on that. And having him in this meaningless tag team with Kenny Omega where they don't really do anything is pointless, utterly pointless. Get the belts off of them. Those belts are being hijacked. You know, they're hijacking the tag team division by having those belts, and also I think at this point they're also hijacking the ability for Kenny Omega and Hangman Page to be what they normally are, which is great single stars. So that's my sort of, you know, first point out. My hot take actually would be to have Jimmy Havoc and Kip Sabian win the tag team titles on AEW Dynamite this week. I think they should win it, first of all, I think because they are guys who actually need the heat. They need the push. They need the relevancy. They need the ability to be paid attention to more because they're starting to slowly get a bit of traction, but they're nowhere near what I would call high marquee credible talents, if you know what I mean. They're not on a level with, say, Chris Jericho or John Moxley. You know, they're just not big guys in that regard. They're really capable mid-carders. This could give them a really good boost and then have them drop the titles at Fyter Fest to a much more credible tag team like Lucha Brothers or Proud and Powerful. My vote would be Proud and Powerful. At the same Fyter Fest, I'd like to see the Revival take on someone like Private Party or Best Friends to, you know, really sort of set that in. Then obviously we can start building a tag team rivalry. Proud and Powerful maybe going after the Young Bucks, have the Revival build their credibility and their run as the most dominant tag team, and then we can build to All Out, possibly as the Young Bucks face the Revival. Maybe the Young Bucks can get the belts off of Proud and Powerful. Maybe they can get them off from All Out, and then we can build to Revolution. There's no reason why, because come on, isn't it Fear the Revolution? Would it not make sense to have it at Revolution? I mean, come on, build to that. But nevertheless, do it with the right timing. Do it with the right pace. Don't just fucking spunk it and blow your load just because you're like, oh my God, we've got a revival. Let's get them in there. Because I guarantee they'll probably have a debut next week against something like the Lucha Brothers or Private Party. And then you'll be sitting there thinking, what the fuck, man? Like, let them fucking do things at the right pace. Use the fact that you have so many dream matches at your disposal. As opposed to being like, oh, okay, well, we'll just keep spunking them every week because that's what the people want. Yes, the people do want that, but they also want a long-term, credible show because what was one of the biggest mistakes Nitro made? You know, they would throw in away these world-class main events. Next week, Sting versus Flair. Week after that, you know, Sting versus Hogan. What the fuck? Why are these not pay-per-view only? Make people want to pay for your best matches. Make people want to pay for your best rivalries. Make people invested in those rivalries, not have them every single week where there's literally no build. I want to see months and months of build for the Revival versus the Young Bucks. Not, oh, we started on them last week. This week we're going to face them. No. You know, and they've been guilty of doing that. Just because AEW is amazing does not mean they are infallible from our opinions. They are not infallible from criticism. And this is something that they need to work on, which is stop blowing your fucking load over these incredible matches. But, you know, the final point, the exclamation point on this is the Revival are in the house. This is a good thing. This is great for business. Just make sure that you do right by them and everybody who wants to see them work against some of the best tag teams in the world. Turns out Timothy Thatcher might possibly have an injury from a certain individual known as Matt Riddle, which I'm sure that Nick Payne is wanking himself silly over this point as well, because Matt Riddle is his favourite wrestler other than Triple H. Double whammy here, my friends, in terms of news. So we're not entirely sure whether it is a kayfabe or a shoot injury. If it's a shoot injury, I would like to make a quick point just about the hypocrisy of wrestling fans, because I've noticed not a single person gives a shit about the fact that Matt Riddle may have possibly completely fucked up Timothy Thatcher's teeth. Why is that okay? But every time someone like a Sasha Banks does something, we all fucking cause nuclear meltdown. I don't understand this level of hypocrisy. If you have damaged somebody in the ring, you know, either everybody gets critique or criticism, even if it's a mistake, or you just don't criticize anyone and accept that wrestling is what it is. Now, me personally, I don't have a problem with it. At the end of the day, Timothy Thatcher is one big motherfucking man. He is a hard motherfucker as it is. But I just think the hypocrisy levels are a bit ridiculous. I saw a couple of people on social media saying, oh, you know, a bit unprofessional if he has done it. And everyone's like, oh, fuck off, it's wrestling. I'm like, whoa. When everyone else does it, particularly in Nia Jax, have you noticed this? In the women's division, it's almost like it's unacceptable for women to accidentally hurt each other. But men, nobody gives a shit. Yeah, it's fine, whatever. Same with Seth Rollins. I think Seth Rollins, I mean, to be fair, Seth Rollins did get a fair amount of grief for the amount of wrestlers he injured, but, you know, he all get a pass as far as I'm concerned, far more than the women do, and I just think that's horseshit and double standards. The other side of this is that Matt Riddle is apparently preparing to debut on Smackdown. So, obviously, he's upset somebody because he's been demoted. As far as I'm concerned, because Smackdown sucks.
It's
Matt
terrible.
Matt Riddle's moving to SmackDown. Very droll of you. Yeah, Matt Riddle moving to SmackDown, which, to be fair, will certainly bolster the wrestling ability of that show. But SmackDown's problems actually lie in the fact that it's got terrible storylines, not that it hasn't got good wrestlers, for Christ's sake. So, what do you think about Matt Riddle moving to SmackDown?
I mean, I don't really have a problem with it, I'll be honest. I don't watch SmackDown on a regular basis because it's so bad. But that being said, they've got an incredible roster. You know, we could get Matt Riddle against Daniel Bryan. I would enjoy that. We could get Matt Riddle against AJ Styles. I would very much enjoy that, please. Hell, even like Riddle and Nakamura could be fun. Then again, Nakamura has been extremely watered down, and I haven't cared about him since he won the Royal Rumble 2 years ago. So, you know, happy days. Those were happy days. The wrestling should be great. But like you say, their stories are just so incredibly either dull or just straight up bad that it's going to take more than some dude that's high 24/7 to make this fun.
Fair enough. It's I think the obvious kind of match to go to is Daniel Bryan versus Matt Riddle. That seems to be the best bet. I think actually Riddle has the potential, particularly if he takes off on this major platform. He has the potential to get involved with the Universal title mix very quickly. I really do. I'm not actually a huge fan of Matt Riddle personally. He's just not my cup of tea, but I will completely admit that he is one of the best wrestlers I think WWE has had in some time, because he is really good at combining wrestling with MMA and not just being an out-and-out MMA guy. Like when Lesnar comes out, I mean, Lesnar can have good matches when he's motivated, but for the most part, these MMA matches, it's a lot of kind of ground and pound or, trying to make it look too real. Riddle's really good at bridging that gap. That's one thing I love about him. His MMA and his wrestling are so good. Like, he's not just an out-and-out striker, which I really appreciate. So, he could have a lot of potential and a lot of excitement to him. He definitely needs more of a character, though. I'm sorry, but the bro thing is fucking boring. It is. It's just so tedious, and it's just a bit meh, a bit meh. It's just, whatever. He just comes in and says, bro, and makes jokes about Bobby Fish, and I think, oh, that it? It's just really weak, It's very transparent, and you can see right through it. And I think if you want him to be far more successful, for instance, right, think about the people who are really popular on the WWE product. Who's probably for me, Asuka is probably one of the most popular and most exciting acts. That's my personal opinion. Now, the reason I love Asuka is because of the depth of character. She can do so many different things and present herself in so many different ways. Matt Riddle feels like a one-horse, a one-trick pony, a one-trick horse. Once he's done his bro thing and made his, kind of weed-related jokes or whatever, there's not much else there other than the fact he's a wonderful wrestler. You got to have depth to be a consistent character, I feel. That's my personal opinion when it comes to a TV sports entertainment-based show like this, particularly WWE, which is all about being basically a soap opera at this point and not really about being a wrestler at all. So that's the problem with Matt Riddle, is that people don't really care if you're a good wrestler anymore. They want to see large-and-life characters like The Rock, like Austin, and he's nowhere near that level. He just isn't. It's just the way it is. And that's why someone like Nakamura and someone like Cesaro, ultimately, it's all very well and good that us as Smarks and the independent wrestling community, internet wrestling community, it's all very well and good that those guys want to get all fucking hot under the collar about those guys. But the reason they're not successful is because they have the charisma of a walnut. I'm sorry, but that is the way it is. That's why, ultimately, the general fan base doesn't care about Nakamura or Cesaro. So, yeah, it is just one of those things. But yeah, I must admit, having Riddle on Smackdown makes it a little bit more watchable for me. So, I actually think if you were going to send him somewhere, I think Smackdown was the best place to send him. I really do. I believe that. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, fuck's sake, I hate Smackdown. Yeah, Smackdown is shit. But with Riddle not being the strongest character in the world, I think being on Smackdown will work really well for him. So I think it's a good fit, personally. Do you have a dream match for Riddle? Somebody that you would like to see him face?
Like I said earlier, I'd really love him to face AJ Styles. Just
Goldberg.
I'd like. Oh God, yeah, there is that. But I mean, I have so little interest in Goldberg that match doesn't really do anything for me. At least not anymore. Like, Goldberg should have stopped at SummerSlam when he murdered Ziggler. I would have been happy. But he just had to go and do all his stupid Goldberg things. But now AJ would definitely be at the top for me just because, he is my favorite wrestler of all time. I think I could firmly say that. So I think they'd have a good match. And obviously Daniel Bryan because, funny how we just mentioned the two best wrestlers on SmackDown. But I mean, that's kind of what SmackDown is. It's the wrestling show. That's why its stories are so bad, because it has generally very good wrestlers. And Matt Riddle is a good wrestler.
Yeah, that is very true. It's very true, to be honest. So, Mr. Wilkinson, something that's been very popular on our State of Wrestling address has been your reaction to unpopular opinions. Would you like to hear a few more?
I would. I, had a relatively rough day yesterday, so I've got some anguish to get out. Let's do it.
Well, before we get to that, I thought you would like an opportunity to speak about your dearly beloved father, whose anniversary of passing was yesterday. I believe it was 5 years to the day that he had passed. And I know that it was a topic that was very close to your heart, obviously, and I know that you wanted an opportunity to speak about your father.
Yeah, just kind of something real quick. My dad, he was my hero, my best friend. I could talk to him about anything and everything, and he's the reason I got into wrestling. His favorite superstar in the 80s and 90s was The Undertaker. The 80s was like The Undertaker in the 90s. He was a big Randy Savage fan. So that's kind of why I like the wrestlers I do now, right? Like AJ and Daniel Bryan and all the real technical guys, because he loved Savage. And then in the 90s, I mean, I just grew up watching The Undertaker. The first wrestling show I ever went to, it was the summer after I graduated grade 8, so I was about 14, and he took me to a show at our local arena called the Memorial Center, and I got to see Rey Mysterio wrestle in a tag match with Booker T. I think it was against Eminem. The Undertaker was there. I don't remember who he faced. It was so long ago, but it was just such an incredible time. It was just my dad and I, and he's the reason I am the way I am now. I wouldn't be the man I am without him. I wouldn't have the passion for wrestling that I do without him. So this episode's a little dedication to my old man.
Yeah, I think I'm really thrilled about the fact that you get to do the podcast, even more knowing that as well, because I think your dad would be really excited about that idea, the fact that you were getting a chance to express with the big world. This podcast obviously is available on every platform, and I think it's very cool that your voice is out there as well to be heard. And I think something I've always taken a real pride in with our podcast is that I'm willing to allow people's voices to be heard where they aren't in a lot of other places. A lot of wrestling podcasts, it's all about, listen to my voice, and we don't really give a shit about, I actively encourage people to send stuff in. And if you are listening, please contact us with any opinions you have on wrestling. Doesn't matter how inflammatory they are, I'm more than happy to share them, because I don't mind a difference of opinion. So if you completely disagree with everything I've said, that's absolutely fine. Send it in, as long as it's relatively respectful. I don't care if you want to swear and stuff like that. And obviously, if you're going to threaten me, then fair enough. It's probably not going to make it on this podcast. But other than that, I'm more than happy for people to share their opinion. And, something that was very cool about having you on this podcast was the fact that, knowing that it's something that would have no doubt made your dad very proud as well, which is very cool. A lot of people aren't really blessed with the chance to love parents, I suppose, or have that loving family around them. Me personally, I'm not a family person at all. Don't really have any family, never really brought up with any family. I have a mother. We clash a lot because we're just very different people. I haven't had a relationship with my dad since I was 5, really. I do have 2 little sisters now who have only just recently come into my world, which is pretty wonderful, and I obviously love and protect them with everything I have. And one of them, but they're obviously daughters from another relationship that my dad's had, so obviously it's very difficult from that perspective. But I also appreciate how important it is for certain people when it comes to the relationships they share with their family and stuff. So yeah, it's always lovely to know that his legacy kind of lies with you, and I feel like you're doing a good job of carrying that on. So keep up the good work, Sunshine. I'm sure Dad will be very proud of you.
Well, that's always the goal. Even when I was at my lowest points after he passed away, and my girlfriend at the time also left me because she couldn't deal with the way I was grieving. There were points in my life where I thought that he would definitely be ashamed of me for being weak or something, but I now realize that was completely ridiculous. That makes me an idiot. And my dad, as much as I could have used his advice and all that kind of stuff, he was, I'm not much of a religious guy, but he was always up there, or he was somewhere making sure I could come out the other side.
Yeah, it's a beautiful sentiment, man. It really is. We won't dwell on it too long, but it's nice to know that he's remembered the right way, and this podcast is absolutely dedicated to his memory, as will so many in the future as well. Right, unpopular opinions. Time to give you a little bit of a trigger, sir. So, plenty of people on Twitter seem to want to put terrible opinions out there, so I thought we'd use some of them and put them on there. Now, we haven't asked for their permission, nor do we give a shit. If you put it on social media, chances are you want people to see them because they are unpopular opinions in your eyes. So we're going to see whether Kyle thinks these are unpopular wrestling opinions. Let's have a look. At baby _ I think that says Medusa. Yeah, it is. At baby _ Medusa. Unpopular wrestling opinion. Color contacts on wrestlers look weird and corny. These are quick fire, by the way.
Well, like contact lenses for their eyes?
Yeah, like Shawn Spears and Rey Mysterio.
No, that's stupid. Rey Mysterio looks great. Shawn Spears looks great. I'm pretty sure Ember Moon used them, and that made her character look fucking phenomenal. That's stupid, and I hate this person.
Excellent. I love how quick and succinct that was. At Geordie Innit. Unpopular opinion, the People's Elbow was so dumb. If I could be bothered, I would make a thread of the dumbest wrestling moves in history. Feel free to tell me some, though.
I mean, the People's Elbow, it was just a big old thematic elbow drop. That's probably why it didn't finish a whole lot of matches, but I had a lot of fun watching it. The Rock was a showman, and that move was the epitome of showmanship. Fuck off.
Love this. At Board in My House. Wait, no, that's just his normal name. At Aponte J's Move. J Smooth? Why do people get these fucking names from? Honestly, it's just ridiculous. His unpopular opinions. Seth Rollins is the best heel in professional wrestling right now.
Have you seen MJF? Next.
Oh, that is actually phenomenal. At CAWF Wrestling. Yep, that's correct. Unpopular opinion, but the TNT Championship is not as bad as everyone was saying it was, in my opinion. It's not good, but it's not the worst. I'd say it's subpar.
I mean, it's all right. I think the plates would maybe look better, maybe smaller, but no, it's not as bad as a 24/7 championship.
The Canadian Experience on Twitter says that, so you should be in relevant agreement here, Angel Garza has more potential than Andrade.
Oh, that's a tough one because I actually love both guys. Oh, that one's actually really, really tough.
Being a Canadian, he's obviously got a much more measured approach to wrestling.
Yeah, Andrade, he had the ridiculously amazing run in NXT. I wouldn't say he's floundered on the main roster, but I don't think he's definitely reached his potential. It seems like Angel Garza has kind of gone up to the same level a little faster, but I still think Andrade has a higher ceiling.
Yeah, I think that Garza has more potential as a character. So I don't completely disagree. I think he's got a little bit more natural charisma, if you know what I mean. Andrade works with a more wrestling-based environment, but he also has Zelina Vega in his corner. I'm interested to see, for instance, if you're going to say Andrade with Zelina Vega doesn't have as much upside as Garza on his own, I'd probably disagree. But if all things are balanced out, if you're talking about just them as individuals, I think Garza definitely has more from a charisma standpoint, but I still prefer Andrade's moveset a little bit. I don't know why. I think Garza's phenomenal, though. I love both guys, so it doesn't really hurt me to hear that. I think that's a very good unpopular opinion, actually, in a lot of different ways. Unpopular wrestling opinion from at Grolfis. Brock Lesnar should have won the 24/7 championship.
Oh, you mean when he just murdered R-Truth? Yeah, I would have been okay with that. That would have been hilarious because no one would take it off Brock because can you imagine they film something where they just walk up onto Brock's farm in Minnesota and then they just aren't seen on TV for 4 weeks because Lesnar murders them. He just comes charging at them, and the last thing you see on the camera is just the people going ah, and then it cuts to black, and you don't see them for a month. That would be fucking amazing.
Yeah, I'd pop my tits off of Brock Lesnar as 24/7 champion because they just have to retire the belt because nobody's going to take it off him. Oh, I can imagine it. I actually think that would be fucking amazing. A damn sight better than having that fucking twat Gronk with it anyway. Jesus Christ. At LazyBug47, an unpopular opinion, but the Impact Knockouts division is the best women's division in all of wrestling in his opinion.
I am in agreement with this opinion. I have loved the Knockouts division it was the selling point for TNA back in the mid 2000s. It's why TNA was so good. Like AEW, they've got a good division, but it's always seemed like a champion and contender. That was it. And now with, a few of them injured, they need to, bolster the ranks a little bit. WWE's, and I'm going to include NXT in this, is still very good, but it doesn't seem like right now, as much as I love Charlotte Flair, I haven't seen any NXT because since I went live, I can't watch it. But I don't see enough women, I guess, on WWE TV on a regular basis with how many they have and how many hours of programming they have. Whereas Impact, they have a woman as their world champion. I know that doesn't count as the Nuggets division, but that's where Tessa Blanchard started. And yeah, I'm in total agreement with this, actually.
Here's an interesting one. This Fire Burns is better than Cult of Personality.
Cult of Personality is more not symbolic, but I'm going to say it's more recognized, I guess, because that's what he came into when, he took the title and ran away for 8 whole days. 8 whole days, guys. That's how long he left. Christ almighty.
You fucking renegade, you. Oh, dear.
I love Killswitch Engage as a band. Like, This Fire Burns is actually a brilliant song. But, Cult of Personality was just so much more... I don't know, just when that opening chord hits or the opening riff, it's just... I pop my tits off every time. I might not like punk, but that was a brilliant theme song.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. At M-Root, his name's Mike Root, apparently. Baron Corbin is about as entertaining as a wet sock. See also Dolph Ziggler.
Baron Corbin murdered, wrong, because he murdered 2 people. Well, he attempted to murder 2 people. That was great. His heel work has been not, amazing, but it's been quite good. He's got one of the best big guy movesets of anyone on the WWE roster right now. Do you have eyes?
Apparently not. Well, I think he does have eyes. Whether they work or not is obviously up for debate, so I can't really give him too much aggro in that regard. Unpopular opinion by a tired black man. WCW could have won the Monday Night Wars. What do you mean could have? Should have, maybe, but could have? Yeah.
Is there any more context, or is it just could have won?
That's because literally it. It just says that.
They give no argument as to how they could have done it. So how are we supposed to talk about it when there's no context with which to say it?
At the Goose 93. Oh, sorry, carry on, sir.
No, I'm just sighing in aggravation because that could have been interesting to talk about, but there was literally no ammo for the gun.
Yeah, it's like, no, fuck you. He just basically clicked an empty barrel. At the Goose 93, the Bellas suck. They shouldn't be recognised as part of the women's revolution. They were really the last remains of the Divas era. They were awful on the mic and as bad in the ring.
I think that's actually bullshit. I think while they might have been the last of the air quotes Divas division, they helped build the bridge towards the women's revolution because they were the target of people, like Paige, like AJ Lee. Without them as the focal point to hashtag give women a chance, I don't think we would be where we are now. Nikki Bella, especially while she was champ, she wasn't great between the ropes, but she got, like, in comparison to where she was, to where she, was when she retired, or I don't know if she's actually retired, whatever. She grew leaps and bounds. I think she became a very, very good and credible worker. That actually pisses me off. I never thought I'd get mad about someone saying the Bella Twins were bad, but I think they were an integral part. Fucking idiots.
I'm fully in agreement with you. I think that's an utterly... Did Brie Bella offer nearly as much as Nikki by the end of it? Probably not, if I'm being honest. For me, I was always a much bigger fan of Nikki Bella, not just because she's smoking hot, by the way. I just like Nikki Bella. I think she worked so hard to get herself over. And I think a lot of people would not have as much vitriolic hate towards them if she hadn't broken AJ Lee's title reign. I think a lot of people feel that was like, you just did that to shit on AJ Lee, etc., etc. But I loved AJ Lee. I thought she was wonderful on the mic, and I loved her character. But AJ Lee was never a world-class worker by any means. She had very average matches at best. I liked AJ Lee personally, but people tend to just weirdly stan people based on, what they look like or who they are as opposed to their work ethic, and can be a little bit frustrating at times, but it is what it is. So, it's definitely an unpopular opinion. I'll give you that. This is an interesting one. At Omega's Judas. Unpopular opinion. Cyndi Lauper deserves just as much credit for mainstream appeal of professional wrestling. Rock and Wrestling Connection having Lou Albano appear in GJWHF, whatever that is. Her being at the side of Wendy Richter is etched into women's wrestling history.
I can agree with that. I think the Rock and Wrestling Connection it kind of brought wrestling back into the mainstream in the 80s, and I mean, who was a bigger star than Cyndi Lauper? So I don't think that's too unpopular, honestly. I'm okay with that one.
Yeah, that seems fair. In response to one earlier, I Love Wrestling says that Baron Corbin is awesome. So there you go. Let's have a gander at the Steve Dawson. Brett versus Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series is a fantastic match and is much better than our Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12.
I don't think it would matter how good the Survivor Series match was, because it will always be clouded by what happened at the end. It will always be overshadowed.
As a wrestling fan, and as somebody who loves Bret Hart more than anything else on earth, I actually think that match is phenomenal because of the hatred involved in it, and because, nobody remembers the match. But if you actually go back, honestly, here's your weekly challenge from the WrestlePlug, ladies and gentlemen. Go back and watch Survivor Series 97's main event and watch the match for the match, and try to ignore, obviously, all the nonsense that happens at the end, or, just take that in with it. But the match itself is actually phenomenal. Utterly phenomenal. They played to the crowd beautifully. They obviously used the real life hatred to make such a highly effective match. It genuinely is fucking brilliant, that match. It really is. It's a masterpiece just because of the sheer vitriol that's involved between the two. I love it dearly, actually. I think it's genuinely probably the most forgotten match just because of obviously what happened afterwards. But it's not only is it important to wrestling history, but also as just a standalone match, it is really useful as a tool for showing people about the psychology of wrestling.
Oh, absolutely. I don't remember the match beginning to end just because of how much the end and the screw job is just etched into everyone's mind. But considering the two performers involved, how could it not be incredible? But that Iron Man match, there's something so special about it. It does, it's an hour, so we all know it starts off a bit slow, but it just builds and builds and builds for like the last 15 minutes or so of just this crescendo. And then obviously, Shawn gets the win in overtime, blah, blah, blah. But no, I'd have to go with the Iron Man match on this one.
Fair play, mate. At Mark Big Potatoes, unpopular opinion, but Jim Ross was always overrated for me. Oklahoma in WCW had him spot on. To add to context, by the way, the Oklahoma thing in WCW was basically a guy making fun of the fact that Jim Ross had cerebral palsy. So, this guy's basically saying that guy pretty much had JR spot on as a warbling dimwit with cerebral palsy. Or Bell's palsy, excuse me, not cerebral palsy. My apologies for that. That's a mistake on my part.
Jim Ross is, for my money, the second best commentator that has just ever done it. No one will beat the Brain. Sorry. I'm pretty sure
no one will beat Tom Phillips, mate. I don't know what you're on about.
Hey, Tom Phillips is actually really good.
Tom Phillips is
best in WWE right
opinion.
Now.
My most unpopular opinion, right? Or one of mine. Tom Phillips is the most underrated commentator in the world. There you go, I said it. He's so good at what he does.
100% agreement with that.
Nobody gives him any love because he's surrounded by dim-witted morons half the time. But him and Joe are fucking magnificent as a pairing. They just need to get rid of that fucking awful geezer next to him.
Yeah, I'm in 100% agreement with that one. But I think JR, my unpopular opinion is that he is tarnishing his legacy week in and week out on Wednesdays. I love him to death, but I don't think he adds a lot to Dynamite. I just don't.
Bird Box Bandersnatch says that although being a huge fan of ECW and having VHS tapes at the time, ECW was the Indiana Jones of the wrestling industry. It was awesome to watch, still adored to this day, but if you take them out of the equation, the story is still the same.
I mean, it wasn't, like a three-way war in the 90s. But
people seem to think it was, don't they? But it actually wasn't. It was still just ECW was kind of like the really cool feeder show. They were the cult, they were the cult's favorite. But as with all things that are cultish, there isn't that much of a following. Yeah,
that's the thing. Both WWF and WCW just started cherry picking guys from that roster. ECW had a great roster with incredible performers, and both of the bigger companies just went. It's like they're fucking standing in the gym playing dodgeball and they're just picking teams. Okay, well, I'll take Rey Mysterio. Okay, that's cool. I'll take the Dudley Boys, and you can have two more picks, and then I'll pick another one. That's what it felt like. They were just doing draft picks because ECW had some great performers, and both WWF and WCW could offer them more money to practice their craft on a bigger stage. ECW was not a member of this war. They were just like OVW or the Power Plant or something. They were just this feeder school to the two bigger ones.
Yeah, man. Here's a good one, actually. I really like this one. Killian Jacobs. Ring announcers should not have to tell fans to move when wrestlers are flying out of the ring. Wrestlers, if you cannot judge/time your dive without risking the health of paying customers, don't fucking dive.
It is the wrestler's responsibility to not only entertain, but definitely keep the paying customers safe. If people aren't moving, don't do the dive.
Charles channel at Brony459. It is possible to make a PG wrestling show and make it enjoyable. You just need to know how to write a wrestling show. That's really the problem with WWE to me.
I mean, the writing for the most part hasn't been great lately. They've definitely had some really good stories, but it's not that the writing's bad, it's that it's not consistent. That's the biggest thing for me, is consistency as opposed to just, you can be good, but if it only happens once every 3 weeks, I'm not going to care. Make it consistently good, and then we might have something.
Here's one that's going to get you a little bit hot under the collar. Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25 is overrated.
It's still the single best match in WrestleMania history for me. It was, other than, when Taker does the dive and the cameraman doesn't catch him and you think he's dead because a 6'8" man or 6'10" lands on his head and neck, and he's not just a dead man anymore. Mark Calloway might have actually died. It's still it's the best WrestleMania match I think I've ever seen. Both the performers were still at the top of their game. I mean, I think we all knew Shawn was starting to slowly wind it down, but he still put on an incredible match, and Taker still had a lot in the tank back then. A lot more than he does now. As much as I love him and he tries, it's just not great anymore.
At Liam A. Stewart, Arn Anderson's Spinebuster is meh. It is, in fact, also inferior to Triple H's Spinebuster. God, fucking, I could hear Nick Payne.
Is this a Nick Payne? No, this is a Nick Payne feeder account, isn't it?
It's a burner account, it is.
Oh, you piece of shit.
Nick Payne, you prick. Nick the prick strikes again.
Double A Spinebuster is the single best Spinebuster that's ever been in the wrestling business. Full stop. Next.
Chris Mattingly, Ruthless Aggression era is better than the Attitude era.
I mean, isn't the Attitude era still the most successful period in wrestling? Like,
I mean,
isn't
the
that just a
Attitude Era was
fact?
garnering 6 to 7 million viewers a week.
Yeah.
And at one point, I believe WCW and Nitro and Raw, between the two of them, were garnering over 10 million viewers regularly a week.
Yeah, I think just factually, it's the most successful period in wrestling. The Ruthless Aggression era, sure, it gave us, it gave us stars that we were going to get in the future. Like, it gave us Cena and Batista, Orton. But nah, I'd still have to say the Attitude Era was better because they didn't have any stars like Austin, like The Rock. Hell, even like Triple H's heel work in the early 2000s, or like late 90s, early 2000s, was some of his best work. I mean, come on, those matches with Cactus Jack, find me some better work.
There's a really good one here, but it's more about the N64 than it is wrestling as a whole. He just happens to mention wrestling games, but he thinks that basically the N64 is trash other than the wrestling games, so I'm not touching that one because that will...
No, I'll be here forever.
That will infuriate me. Yeah, that infuriates me. That is a terrible, terrible opinion by somebody who clearly has not played many very good games on the N64, so he can shut his whole mouth as far as I'm concerned. Oh, by the way, if you're listening and you don't like the N64, you can also shut your whole mouth.
Yeah, shut your ass or whatever Jericho keeps telling people to do.
Tom Kenny, not a fan of the Young Bucks. They've had a few good matches and are entertaining with being the elite, but don't like them in the ring.
This was like me when I first saw them. I thought they were just a bunch of silly-looking spot monkeys, and because I said that, I got blocked by one of them on Twitter, and it still hasn't been unblocked. And I'm actually a pretty big Young Bucks fan now. I think they are incredible storytellers now. They definitely had some times where they weren't, but I think they're fantastic now. They're more than what they used to be. And if you don't acknowledge that, that's just, you're dumb. Straight up, you're dumb, and you should drink bleach or eat a Tide Pod.
Unpopular opinion, podcast reviews of wrestling shows with just one person is really hard to watch. 10 to 25 or 30 minutes tops are the sweet spot of wrestling review shows, with WrestleMania and Wrestle Kingdom shows being the only true exceptions to this, I think. So basically, this guy reckons we should keep it down to 25 minutes to half an hour tops.
Well, then this guy doesn't have a sense of humor, or he doesn't like fun, or maybe he just had one bad experience and it's just scarred him for life. And
I mean, he's got 16 followers, obviously whatever he's doing probably isn't really garnering much effect if we're going to go down that route. But it is. It is what it is.
Yeah. That's just unfortunate. I think you've done plenty of the special YouTube reviews on your own, and I've liked every single one of them. They're short, concise, to the point, and there's always a bit of humor in there, and that's something I love about you.
Well, yeah, I try, bless you. I try and keep the YouTube things, relatively short, just because I know that people do not have time to sit there and stare at a screen for 2 hours unless it involves shooting people on GTA 5, which is more than acceptable. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you are listening and you're a big fan of GTA 5 on the Xbox One, you are more than welcome to join our growing crew, which is consistently hammering out heists and generally causing all kinds of hilarious shenanigans. Big shout out to my boys, Cameron and Lance, who have been joining me and Carl on GTA lately for some good crack and some good heists. It's been a good laugh. So yeah, if anyone's got an Xbox One, they like playing GTA 5, maybe they don't have too many friends and they'd like somebody to keep them entertained, or maybe, they're just feeling a little bit on their own or lonely, we are more than happy to help out and support you guys. And also, you're more than welcome to join us for a bit of GTA nonsense, as long as you're not a complete and utter cockwaffle, obviously. But I'm sure that's not the case, because only great people listen to the Wrestle Plug, I'm sure. So, yeah, I'm sure Kyle will have that as well, because I know Kyle wants as many friends as possible when it comes to GTA 5, because he has an addiction problem.
Hey, we spammed, 3 heists yesterday? We made some damn good bank.
Yeah, man, we need to start streaming that shit, because me, you, and Cam were causing utter mayhem, and that was hysterical beforehand. So,
just in the barrage?
If anyone wants, so what I'm thinking is opening up a WrestlePlug Twitch stream, but obviously I'm not going to bother giving myself even more work unless you guys want it. So if you're listening, get in contact with us. Let us know if you'd like a Twitch stream where you can watch me Kyle and all the gang. I'll probably be on like a video so you can actually see me streaming. And then obviously I have Kyle and Cam and all kinds of great people in the group chat. So if you want to get involved, you're more than welcome to. But obviously it's entirely up to you guys whether you want to. But nonetheless, you can add me on Xbox One. Dunham Devil is my name. That's DUNHOLME space Devil. If you want to add me on Xbox One. And we can happily chat wrestling, or you can join me for a bit of GTA nonsense. I also play loads of other games as well. I love myself some Minecraft and things like that. So, you know, if anyone out there is feeling a little bit lonely or, you know, wants a few more friends to game with and stuff like that, we're more than welcome to offer ourselves some support. Obviously, the only thing we ask is, you know, be a little bit respectful. You know, I don't mind if you're who you are, but obviously don't start fucking adding us and then, like, you know, just being cunts about it. You know, just be a bit more respectful, I guess, but that should really be par for the course, shouldn't it? So, but yeah, I am available all the time on Xbox One, and I guarantee as soon as I stop talking, Carl Wilkinson is going to be fucking shilling the shit out of his gamer tag.
Yeah, absolutely. You can add me on my... You'll have to excuse my name. It's a little edgy because I was a young lad when I made it.
Such an edgelord.
I know. But mine will be, where is it here? Just got to double check because I haven't actually looked at it in a while because I just don't have many friends. You know, ex-demented David. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah,
you're going to have to spell that for people.
Yeah, I'll, whenever this gets released, I'll definitely spell it out for you because it's a hell of a long name and I have some regrets about it, but I don't think I can change it. So I just kind of leave it as is.
That's fair. That's fair.
I must have made this when I was like 17. What the hell? How did I have any friends?
Man, I didn't have any friends at 17. What was I doing at 17? Actually, yeah, no. When I was 16 to 17, I had a really shit time of it. That was my first year of college, and I was doing just talk amongst yourselves now, ladies and gentlemen. We're pretty much done here as it is. Yeah, no, when I was 17, I remember I was like in college and I was midway through my first year of, can you believe this? I took a course in information communication technology, which is all the really boring parts of IT. So what that means is that you literally just sit there and learn about spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations, which, by the way, would end up being incredible thanks to Drew Gulak, but at the time they weren't so good. And it was just terrible, and I completely flunked that year. And then when I was midway through being 17, I took a GMVQ in media and won Student of the Year at my college. So obviously I had some creative ability when it came to media. Mostly because I spent all that time editing wrestling videos together. So, you know, probably helped and lent itself well to certain things. But yeah, that's basically what I was doing when I was 17. And, you know, half of the course, didn't have many friends then. Probably still don't have many friends now, but it is what it is.
Hey, quality over quantity, my friend.
Fucking right, mate. Quality. Well, you come to the wrong place if you're looking for quality. We're all about how much shit we can get out, because it's such good shit. Anything you want to talk about, mate, before we wrap up this car crash?
I wouldn't call it a car crash. I found this one rather successful. But no, it was definitely... it's always just nice to sit down and talk the wrestling with you, buddy. It's always the highlight of the week.
We all love a bit of graps, mate. We all love a bit of graps. If you've got any thoughts on wrestling and what's going on in the wrestling world right now, ladies and gentlemen, then you are welcome to send them in and get involved. At WrestlePlug on all social media. You can contact us via our brand new webpage, WrestlePlug.com, where you can also check out some articles. We're a little bit thin on the ground for articles, ladies and gentlemen, mostly because I am working myself to the bone and all the rest of the people who get involved with the podcast. And I'm looking at you, Carl Wilkinson, and I'm looking at you, Jay Miller. You guys just don't want to submit enough articles. So, you know, basically, these guys don't care about you guys reading fantastic articles. So we're going to put more pressure on them to try and write some more articles.
I need to cleanse my GTA addiction. That's the problem.
Yeah, you do. So get off of GTA for 5 minutes and write some shit articles about how amazing Japanese women are. How could you, of all people, not have told us how amazing Hikaru Shida is yet? Honestly, you are slacking, sunshine. That's all I have to say on the matter. But, yeah, the great thing about those articles, ladies and gentlemen, is you can all get involved too. you can contribute a article to WrestlePlug.com. All you have to do is contact us, whether that be via social media, use the contact us form. I don't think anyone's used it yet on WrestlePlug.com, but we are getting a lot of views on the webpage, which is lovely, and we're now available to find on Google search and everything like that as well. You would not believe the amount of work I am doing to try and help get these things going. But yeah, the great thing is that you guys can contribute an article too. All you got to do is send it to us. You get full accreditation for it. Literally, the only thing we do is offer you a place for your writing to be read. Simple as that. Your voice can be heard in any format at the Wrestle Plug. I promise you that. So if you've got opinions about wrestling, or maybe you feel that nobody's listening to you and what you have to say about wrestling, we are more than welcome to make sure that you are heard, because we are all about interaction here. So do not hesitate to contact us if you've got anything to say about anything. You might have an opinion on Raw. You might have an opinion on AEW. Maybe you don't like the Revival. Maybe you love the Young Bucks. We don't know anything whatsoever. Whatever's really sitting on your mind when it comes to wrestling, I want to hear it, and I want to make sure that it's heard on this podcast as well. So make sure you send it to us however you choose to consume WrestlePlug. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, our podcasts are available on all podcasting platforms and of course on YouTube as well, which is always good fun. So make sure you check it out. Like, subscribe on all platforms, share it. And if you've got any friends who are into wrestling who probably aren't listening to WrestlePlug at the moment, give it a share. Get them involved as well. Maybe they'll enjoy it just as much as we enjoy doing the podcast for them. But most importantly, look after yourselves. I know that a lot of the stuff involving the pandemic is starting to slowly lift as we speak. So hopefully you guys are having an opportunity to spend more time with friends and just generally look after yourselves a little bit better. So apologies for a long-winded podcast, but hopefully it's helped pass the time in a difficult era for all of us. Carl Wilkinson, thank you for joining me for the state of it.
A pleasure and honor, always.
Oh yeah, one more unpopular opinion. Hikaru Shida is a terrible wrestler.
You shut your whore mouth.
You got to trigger them before you leave. I'm kidding. I love her. I just love Japanese wrestling. It's so good. By the way, Joshi women's wrestling, phenomenal. We will always remember Hana Kimura the right way. An incredible soul, sadly taken from us too soon. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to the State of Wrestling address. Keep an eye out on the YouTube and that. I did promise that we would have a tribute to Hana Kimura. I'm currently working on a nice little music video to remember her by, something that everybody can share and enjoy, and hopefully that will do her career and her wonderful, infectious charisma. Hopefully that will do her proud, and it will, keep her legacy alive the right way. So keep an eye out for that, should I say. And most importantly, just look after yourselves. From myself, Carl Wilkinson, thank you very much for listening to the Wrestle Plug. We will catch you very soon for more nonsense from the State of Wrestling address.
This content was brought to you by the Wrestle